Welcome to the In Love with PMDD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist, and I help you stop the monthly PMDD breakups. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It is in approximately 1 in 5 women, and it makes you want to break up with your partner approximately 1 to 2 weeks before your period every single month. So as someone who has suffered with PMDD for over 18 years, I dedicated my doctorate practice to helping partners navigate those monthly PMDD breakups with everything from attachment styles, triggers, sensitivity to noise, sensitivity to touch, all of the things that you really struggle with when you're in PMDD. And I also dedicated my dissertation to a phenomenological study of the relationship experiences of partners of individuals who suffer with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So I'm not just here to help the sufferer, the one who is suffering with PMDD. I am here for the partners as well. So if you need those private sessions, make sure you go to inlovewithpmdd.com and get those tools. So let's get into this week's PMDD trauma transformational tools that is going to help you stop the monthly breakups and stop the suffering and stress in your PMDD relationship. Let's get into it. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about what to do post-argument. Okay, so this is what's happening after you had an argument with your PMDD partner. You blew up in PMDD rage. You've said things, you've done things that you didn't mean, and you're waking up the next day and you're like, oh my goodness, how do I fix this? And I know sometimes this happens when you're in PMDD. Even when you haven't come completely out of it, you still know that you went too far, your partner went too far, you're feeling really, really tense because you don't know how your day is going to go. Is someone going to bring it up, or are you going to ignore it? And you just have this big space of the unknown. So I wanted to bring this up specifically for you because my partner is here in town. And last week when we were together, I was in my follicular phase, and we had an amazing time. And then he came here, and this is day 2 of him being here, also day 2 of me being in PMDD. And we got into a big argument last night. And this normally happens for us on date nights. For some reason, whenever we go out in PMDD and we try to have date nights, it doesn't always go that well. But he was going to be in town, and I figured, it's a holiday weekend. Let's just go out. You know what I mean? And sometimes, even when we try our best, even when we say, ahead of time, I'm not going to fight, I'm not going to argue, it still ends up happening. And what I've been developing is this process of allowing and surrendering to the PMDD suffering. And I'm going to start another series on that. But today I specifically only want to talk about what to do post breakup. So post argument. We actually didn't mention breakups yesterday, which was really, really good. When you have PMDD and you don't mention breaking up during an argument, that's always like a win. You're always like, well, at least I didn't say I wanted to break up with them. So that's progress. So let me tell you what happened. Last weekend, I told you we had a really, really good weekend. We were celebrating our anniversary. I'm out on a walk, by the way. I love recording podcasts out here because I feel my mind is most clear. I'm walking my dog, Leo, but yeah. Okay, so here we go. So last weekend, we had this amazing anniversary weekend. He took me on a gondola ride. We went to some wineries. He gave me a spa day. He dropped me off at the spa. We went to this amazing beach in Southern California. It was Coronado. For those of you who know about Southern California, Coronado is like an island by San Diego. So he dropped me off at the spa. We just had an amazing time. And then he was going to come down a couple of days later to visit me. Or not visit, visit, because he lives in SoCal, I live in Northern Cal. So he came down here on the start of PMDD, right? So I already had a lot of anxious energy towards him coming because I already knew that there's certain expectations that he has for home that he doesn't necessarily have when we're on vacation. And my biggest thing when I'm in PMDD is I don't like being questioned. That is my main thing, is don't question me on certain things, because I take it as criticism. And I just wanted him to allow me to just go through the flow. PMDD because I'm doing this new surrendering thing to the PMDD suffering. I'm not trying to fight it. And I just wanted him to just relax, at the house. And because I didn't want any extra pressure of thinking that things had to be a certain way. And so I went to pick him up at the airport late that night, and I knew that it was going to be really, really late. And so I spent all day anxious, all day of like, how's it going to be when he walks in? Is he going to say anything about anything? Like, I just had all of this anxiety prior to knowing that I was going into PMDD, So first of all, I go to pick him up at the airport, and I have like some rap gangster music playing, which is normally not me. Like, I'm normally like pop music or EDM, like electric dance music. That's normally my vibe. And so when I'm picking him up, I was literally listening to old school. I think it was like G Unit or something, like 50 Cent. Like, it was something so random. I know he was like, what the, and it was blasting. So he gets in the car, nobody gives each other a kiss or anything like we normally do. And he just, gets in, and he's like, hey, but I could already tell that he was nervous. So what I want to let you know is that when your PMDD partner has gone through what he would say as trauma, meaning you've gone through other months of PMDD and it's been really bad blow-ups, very traumatic, then they also get anxiety when PMDD is coming. And I believe that's what was happening. Well, I know that's what was happening because he literally talked about it last night after we had our blow-up. So think about this. I had anxiety about him coming, right? And then he gets in the car and he has anxiety about coming and spending that time together. So you have two individuals with this anxious energy, right? And honestly, we didn't talk about it with each other about the anxious energy. We were kind of operating on day one as if everything was fine, but you can definitely feel the shift between how things were with us when I was in my follicular phase and then also how things were when I was in PMDD. But I had decided to do all the things that he was saying in previous visits, that he was saying during my morning routine. You don't acknowledge me. I don't get enough attention. And so that's what triggers me. So he always says, I go internal. I have an avoidant attachment style when I get into PMDD. So that's very normal for me to get really internal and avoidant and just start doing my own thing. Well, he's used to having, my attention, and how I am when I'm in my follicular phase. Like, we're just always telling each other that we love each other and all these nice things. So he's expecting the same thing. So I said, you know what I'm going to do during this visit to not cause an argument is I'm going to include him into my morning routine. So I woke up in the morning, instead of going straight into my morning routine and putting on my headphones, which is what I normally do, I went and gave him a kiss. And I said, good morning, baby, And I sent the devotional like we always do. And I let him know, I opened the door for him to see that I was, into receiving, a loving environment. I was trying to do things differently because he complained that I didn't give him attention in the morning. So then I was. And then I said, this is what we're doing today. And then I said, okay, I'm about to go into my morning routine. So it was very important for me to acknowledge him, but then also let him know I'm about to go into my morning routine. And this is what I'm going to need my space, essentially. And so he seemed okay with it. So I go into my morning routine. I'm feeling really good. I always feel good after I finish. And I'll do an episode specifically on my morning routine and what that looks like. So most days it's less than an hour a day, but it literally transforms my mood for the entire day, especially with my partner. So all the stress that I was feeling before, I kind of let go of, because I woke up the next day that morning and I was very filled with anxiety and very irritable because my partner snores, and he snores. And so he had snored the previous night. He got sleep. I kind of kept going into deep sleep and then waking up. So I don't know if you've ever had that irritability where, you get really, really good sleep and then you keep getting woken up by snoring. And then I have misophonia, which is the sensitivity to noise. So I was hearing everything, and it was really, really making my sleep interrupted. And so I woke up, and what he did was he allowed me to sleep extra. So he woke up early, and then he let me stay in the bed and get some extra sleep. So I was trying to say, you know what, this is going to be a fresh day, because we used to argue about the snoring so often when we first got together. And what I realized is that it's not his fault that he snores, but I really would get so upset that he's so almost like he was trying to do something to me because it was causing me so much suffering. I kept thinking to myself, why can't he just like understand that he snores and it bothers me? Because he would reference and say, if you really loved me, you could just go to sleep with me, even though I snore. And I was like, that's not a thing. So that's what happened the previous night. So yesterday, I did my morning routine. I felt good. And then I had some homework to catch up on because, I'm writing my dissertation and a couple of other things. And he kind of, stayed on the couch and, read a book or just, did things around the house, which I appreciated because he wasn't putting the pressure on me to entertain him, which I always feel that pressure a lot of times because he doesn't do things like watch TV or things like that. He kind of just wants to be around me and do stuff. And I really had some other stuff to do. So I appreciate that. And I said, hey, let's go for a date night. Pick the place that you want to go. So he picked a really, really nice restaurant. But before we went to the restaurant, we dropped our daughter off. She had a little get together to go to. And he started questioning me. And so here's where the tables turn. You have to know your triggers. So I was in a really loving mood and the get together was at the church. And so he asked me a question and he was like, well, he said, and I was showing him, I said, yeah, this is where the youth church is. And then this is where the main church is. And then he was like, oh, okay, well, do you have any friends here at church or whatever? And so when we're apart, I normally call him right after church or, just kind of tell him about my day. So we check in with each other every single day, basically. So I had never mentioned any church friends. And so when he was like, yeah, so do you have any friends at church? And I was like, what do you mean friends at church? And he's like, that you hang out with after church. And I'm like, what have I ever mentioned that I had? Like, it was so irritating to me and so triggering for me because I knew that it was coming from this anxious, insecure, jealous energy that he commonly has when I'm in PMDD. And I just couldn't believe that he was choosing to go there. And we always think back to how do we get to the start of an argument, when we think back. And so there's always this blaming of like, you started it and blah, blah. And I just brought it up to him. I'm like, you understand that you are essentially causing a problem that doesn't have to be a problem because you're asking me questions that really like, why are you, because I said no. And then he's like repeating, oh, okay, so you don't have any friends at church. Like, that's my trigger. Like, if I answer your question once and then you ask me again, I feel like you're not trusting me or my answer and you're just digging for something because you think that there's something going on. And so I basically was like, you know what? This is how it always starts. You're starting the questions. I said, it's triggering me. I said, this is ridiculous. And then all of a sudden, which is what normally happens, is everything that was bothering him comes out during an argument. So if this happens with your partner and they're trying to, keep the peace and everything, but then all of a sudden you start arguing, that's normally when the truth of what's really bothering them comes out. So he was like, oh, I guess I'm the problem then. I'm the problem. And then he went into, I guess, I guess I'm the bad guy. And what's wrong with just answering the question? I said, it's nothing wrong with answering the question. I just know that it's coming from something deeper. This is not just a question about church. Like, you all of a sudden have a question about whether I have church friends. Like, you're feeling insecure. You know what I mean? When you know your partner, you can call out what is going on with them and just address that, because it makes no sense and continuously talking about what, the church friend was or blah, blah, when it's really that he was feeling insecure. So after that happened, what we ended up doing was we started driving towards the restaurant. And when we drove towards the restaurant, I felt myself on edge. I literally felt the PMDD rage. I felt it all, but I noticed I was able to articulate what was going on a lot better. Like I wasn't just saying random things. I was just like, you know what, this is what's going on, and you need to just tell me. So this is how I turned it around. I said, you need to just tell me what's going on with you. Why don't you just do that? Why don't you just lay it out on the table and tell me what's really bothering you? And then he said, well, I'm mourning the loss of like the partner that I had a week ago. It's really, really hard for me because last week you were like this, and then this week you're like this. And it's hard for me to see that transition. And I said, I understand that, but like, don't blame me for having PMDD. Like, I can't help that I'm going through this transition. And then also I'm doing better. You know, I'm trying. And I gave him examples, and I'm like, he's like, well, you haven't been affectionate with me. I'm like, I was affectionate with you. And then he was like, well, when were you affectionate? I'm like, I woke up this morning and I gave you a kiss. And then he was like, so he kind of like caught himself because he recognized that it wasn't necessarily me that wasn't being open to it. He just felt this lingering trauma towards feeling like he can't approach me. He can't be affectionate. He felt like there was this wall up that was stopping him from doing all the things that he wanted to do. But it was a matter of me letting him know that you have that wall up where you're thinking that, you know, you can't do these things. I'm not showing you that. And he's like, well, remember that time? And I'm like, you know what? You can't go off of last month or 2 months ago. And I always tell this to my private clients is that how you were last month, when you start doing the work, you may be different the next month, and your partner has to be open and accepting of that. But it is going to be difficult because, as you can see with my partner, it was very difficult for him to think that this was a fresh month and that he can be open and do some of the things that, you know, maybe he felt like he would have got yelled at before, or, you know, we would have gotten in an argument before. So I asked him, we were in the parking garage. I said, can we just start this month fresh? Because I'm thinking we have a whole bunch of days that we're still going to be on this trip while he's here. And I didn't want it to go bad. And I said, let's just start fresh. And he said, okay. So we went to the restaurant. We had a good dinner. But there were certain things that started, I guess, that triggered him, meaning he was complaining about a drink that he got. Like it didn't look the color that he wanted. And so he was like, what is this drink? Like, did you make it this way? And so for me, I was trying to keep the peace with the waiter or the bartender. And I was like, I'll drink it. Like, don't worry about it. This is how he likes it, whatever. So then we're walking towards the table. And he says, I don't want you to correct me, you know, in front of other people. Like next time, just whisper in my ear or something. And I was like, okay, you know, because at this point, I'm like, all right, well, now you're getting triggered by little things. And then we go to sit down. And I wanted to sit on the booth because I wanted to set my purse on the booth because it was like a booth and then a chair on our table. And I wanted to sit on the booth and put my purse there. And he was like, I don't like putting my back towards people. And I don't want to, can we switch, you know, chairs? Like he was making such a big deal about it and making it seem like I was doing it intentional. And here's the thing. I notice my partner and other PMDD partners when they are in a mood where it's very combative and they're really anxious and they really have all of these things going on. It doesn't matter what you say or do, they're going to want to argue with you. That rhymes. So I noticed that he was in that state of just wanting to pick a fight with anything. And it's probably because he had all of these anxious thoughts going on in his head about what he didn't like and how it was the shifting into PMDD and everything. So what I did was, and what I'm advising you of, here's the PMDD trauma transformational tool that I'm giving you in circumstances like this, where you notice that your partner is being combative, really combative, and they're kind of bringing stuff up and picking at you for every little thing. And it's starting to trigger you while you're in PMDD because you're feeling like, I can't do anything right. What I want you to do is I want you to disengage. And this is literally what I did. And it wasn't ideal for me to do it at dinner because we still, by the time he was making comments about seating, we still had a whole meal to eat and we still had to go pick up our daughter. Like we still had a lot of left in the evening. But what I noticed was every little thing that I was doing was starting to be taken, maliciously, or like there was some kind of bad intent about it. So I said, you know what? Let's just, I just stayed quiet. And then I switched seats with him, right? So I gave him what it is that he wanted. He wanted to sit where his back was against. And then he kind of explained it. So it made sense. He didn't want to sit with his back towards the audience because he wanted to be able to look out on the perimeter and like if something happened, he wanted to be able to protect me. He's a very protective partner, which I love. And so his mentality of wanting to sit with his back against the wall was so that if anything happens, he can, protect me. You're right. He's military. He's a Marine. He wants to protect his wife, his family, all of those things is part of his personality. And so I understood that. And I said, that's fine. You can sit there. But then he had an issue with me disengaging. And so what I want to let you know is that when you do this disengaging, when you notice that your partner is very irritable and you disengage, they may not like it, right? They may not like the fact that you are not engaging in conversation with them anymore. However, it's going to cause you to have less. Matter of fact, I didn't even have any more PMDD rage. He was saying things and I had disassociated in such a way that I just was enjoying the food. And I wasn't responding to any of the things that he was saying. And the thing about it is he was trying to say things to get my attention, below the belt things that I noticed that I would have normally, if I was already in PMDD rage, it would have triggered me to react, horribly, like flip the table kind of thing. Like not literally flip the table, but feel as if you could flip the table. Because when you get into PMDD rage, you feel so strong and so powerful. It's almost like a superhero kind of thing. It's the superhero mentality when you're in PMDD rage, because you start to believe that you can literally lift up things and move them and throw things. And you seem stronger than you really are. You feel stronger than you really are. And so I know a lot of the comments that he was making about, you're in PMDD, like certain things about mentioning that I was the problem, when at this point I knew that I wasn't, because I was acting calmly. If something doesn't apply to you and your partner is saying it, don't respond to it. Meaning if he's saying stuff to you that's not true, or if they are saying stuff to you that's not true and you know it's not true, you don't have to respond. And by not responding, you're not reacting in PMDD rage. So I was hearing him say all these things because he was trying to get a reaction out of me, and I stayed calm. And so we got back to the house and I went to sleep, and I woke up this morning and there's this decision, right? So this is what I mean by after the PMDD fight, because it technically was a fight, even though I de-escalated it before it got really bad. We ended up not being on good terms last night. Number one, I want you to know that that's okay. It is okay that you end up at the end of the night not being on good terms. Because if you think that, and so I don't agree with that phrase of PMD, because what I know for sure is that in order to resolve any kind of argument that you have with your PMDD partner, you cannot have PMDD rage there. So if you're still in PMDD rage and you're trying to resolve an argument, it's not going to work because you still have the rage inside of you. So don't think that you're a bad partner because you went through an evening and you still had PMDD going on and you didn't resolve the argument and you guys were still arguing. If you choose to leave the argument, which I strongly suggest, do that. Because what you need to understand, and I tell this to all my private clients and I'm telling it to you, the relationship tools that work for individuals who do not have PMDD are not the same as what works when you do have PMDD. So me being a PMDD relationship expert, I'm going to tell you what works for you in PMDD. I'm not going to tell you some generalized relationship advice that is not going to work for you, because then you're going to feel bad if you can't live up to that, to doing the things that, the people are saying to do, right? And we're different because we have PMDD. We are different and we have to handle things differently. So be careful of who you are taking advice from, because you need to be able to get advice specifically for when you're in PMDD and when you're not. Because sometimes when you're not in PMDD, you still have lingering symptoms and lingering things that have to do with PMDD that you have to handle, which is why I created my course about PMDD rage, how to conquer PMDD rage. And it is live right now. And it is literally, you can listen to it audio version. And I also have the ebook, and it's really explaining to you the 4 stages of PMDD rage and how you can conquer it. So go to my website, www.inlovewithpmdd.com, and grab your copy of the course and really listen to it and understand, when you're in PMDD rage, everything is different. Everything is different. And the way you respond has to be different, and it has to be strategic, or else you're going to continuously do damage to your PMDD relationship. So now I'm waking up this morning and I'm on my walk, and here's the second tool that I'm going to give you. I could decide, and I've done this in the past, so I know it's an option. I could decide to just be bitter and to start bringing up everything that my partner did, because a lot of, what he said and did was wrong. But what I'm also letting you know is that it's not a matter of who's wrong and who's right in your relationship, because if one person is wrong and it's causing damage to your PMDD relationship, then both of you are wrong, because you're a team. And when you're a team, I don't know if you've ever done sports before, but when you're a team, you protect your teammates. You don't want to make them feel bad. I could go bring up things and he would probably feel really bad about it. But what would I get out of that? A partner that's not enjoying himself, and then it's going to be tension in the house. Or I can choose to move forward and move fresh. It's not about, so what I've noticed that does not work. So here's another tool for you. Going over the argument, like basically talking about, let's talk about what happened last night, and go through line by line about the whole scenario. Because the truth of the matter is, we both saw what happened differently. We are not going to have the same perception of what happened. And we could spend hours talking about, no, that's not what I said. That's not what I did. But that's not the core issue. So what difference does it make if we argued before the water came or after the water came? Like, these are the kind of minute details that you will begin to argue about when you're trying to talk about, the previous night's argument. It's not about that. What I do want you to address is what it is that your partner needs. What it is that so when your partner acts out of character, it's because they have a need that is not being met. So instead of looking as you need to punish them, you need to start looking at it as, okay, what is it that my partner really needs? And so what did I learn from that disagreement? That, okay, now I know my partner needs this. So for me, I learned that my partner needs more attention. Now imagine this. Imagine if the whole reason that my partner was going through all of that was because he wanted more attention. And in the past, that pushed me away. He got less attention. This is what happens so many times when your partner really needs something from you, like affection, attention, all these things, but they act in such a unloving way that it makes you want to give them less of the very thing that they need. Because sometimes your partner doesn't know how to ask for it. Your partner doesn't know how to say, I need attention from you. I need affection. I need this. So they start acting out. And then it triggers you to get into PMDD rage. And then you don't even feel like being around them. So if you get to that point where you don't even feel like being around them, you don't want to talk to them, you feel like everything's messed up, then they're not getting what it is that they need. And they're continuously act out, and they could give you the silent treatment, or they could start saying things to you that are below the belt. And then before you know it, you'll be questioning yourself, like, am I in PMDD or are they in PMDD? Because when they're triggered, they can start acting in a way to where it seems like they have stuff going wrong with them. And that is I have that happen so many times where I'm talking to people on Instagram. So a lot of PMDD partners message me on Instagram. If you're not following me, you need to follow me on Instagram at In Love with PMDD and come DM me about anything that you have going on with your PMDD relationship. I spend about 2 to 3 hours per day just talking to PMDD partners and giving you advice and reaching out to you because stuff comes up in the week. And maybe there's not a podcast episode specifically, or if you want me to do a PMDD, like a podcast on a specific topic, you can always reach out to me and let me know, like, if this is something that's really bothering me, is there any way that you can do a podcast on it? I'm very open to that. So what I want to let you know is a lot of times what your partner is asking for, their behavior is causing them to not get it. And the same thing could be for you. Meaning if you have that anxious energy and you're wanting more attention from your partner, but in turn you're nagging them and you're giving them anxious energy and you're making them feel bad about the relationship, they're not going to want to give you the attention that you're wanting because now they feel repelled by you because of your behavior. And so when you have the anxious attachment style, you just want everything that you want right then. You want everything right now. You want to drop what they're doing. And you're like, I need this attention. I need this love. I need to feel this way. And you're putting the pressure on your partner to feel a certain way because you want to feel a certain way. And you have to let your partner off the hook and start to do something, what I call self-soothe. I want you to be able to, when you have that anxious attachment style and you're wanting more attention from your partner, I want you to find some things to do that you can fill yourself up that doesn't have to do with your partner. Because when you put the pressure on them to heal you and to make you feel a certain way, then it actually will repel them. And so those are some of the techniques that I work with my private PMDD coaching clients is, what is it that you can do in those moments where you're really needing something from your partner that you won't drive them away from you and repel you so that you can get what you want? Because it's kind of like if you go towards a butterfly and you really want the butterfly to like come land on your shoulder, land on your hand. If you run towards the butterfly, it's going to immediately fly away. And you can go through this all day long where you see the butterfly again and you're running towards it, it's going to fly away because it's seeing all of this anxious energy coming towards it. It's like, whoa, it's too much for them. But how many times have you seen when someone is just sitting there still, the butterfly comes and lands on their shoulder? And it comes and lands on their shoulder because it feels safe. So that's the thing with the anxious attachment style. You're not making your partner feel safe to come to you because you're demanding that they come to you. You're coming to them and saying, I need this. And if you could just do this, then we would be fine. I need. Whereas they're needing to feel safe to come to you without feeling like it's going to be too overwhelming for them. For the avoidant attachment style, in order for us to come to you, I need to feel safe that there's not this big level of expectation that it has to be perfect. And so post-argument now, I'm going to go back and I am not going to talk about everything that happened last night. But what I am going to do is I'm going to give my PMDD partner the attention that he needs. Not because I feel like he deserves it, not that I feel like his behavior. What you have to remember with your partner is you're not their parent. So it's not a matter of you are a bad boy, so you're not going to get the love and attention that you need. You don't punish your PMDD partner for acting as a parent. Use JBL messages, and when you do that, they're going to know, they know when they're, and they're going to correct themselves. They're going to correct themselves way better than if you were to act evil towards them. So when you get out of those arguments, instead of going over what happened and who did what, just give your partner what it is that they need. And I guarantee you, your partner is going to give you what you need, which most of the times when we're in PMDD, it's peace. It's like, I don't want to be stressed out and arguing day after day. I don't want to be worried about what to say, what to do. I don't need that extra pressure. I just want peace. So this is a way to get peace after your PMDD argument. You got this. I hope this PMDD episode helped you and your partner in your struggles within your relationship. And if this is something that you know that you need help with and you need further support, individualized support, make sure you're going to inlovewithpmdd.com and you're getting those private sessions to really work through what you're going through in your relationship, specifically in regards to PMDD. And also, I want you to leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. What this does is it helps other PMDD sufferers and partners find this show that can help them get these free PMDD relationship tools. I remember what it felt like to not know that there were tools out there specifically for PMDD relationships. So I want to make sure that you are sharing these tools with others, share them on your social media, share them with people that you know that are also struggling in their PMDD relationships. Until next episode, this is Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist. One more thing, I almost forgot. I now have the Fresh Start PMDD Partners Workbook. What this workbook can do is if you've had past traumatic experiences with your partner, past fights, past arguments, and they keep coming up every single month in PMDD, I created a Fresh Start Workbook so that you can deal with all of the traumatic experiences that have happened in the past in PMDD rage and all of these things so you can stop going through the same cycle again and again and again. So get that workbook. It comes with a video episode of the actual podcast that I recorded on getting a fresh start in your PMDD relationship. So you're not continuing the same cycle again and again and again. So make sure that you get that workbook. And if you need those individualized counseling sessions, you know where to go, inlovewithpmdd.com. Until next time, we got this. Love you.